Happy? All right. Morning, everybody. So I will start with the Curry Cup team, and then I'll come to the URC team, and then I will share it on the WhatsApp groups. The Vodacom Bulls Curry Cup side that will take on the Fidelity ADT Lions is as follows. At number 1, Simpiwa Matanzima. Number 2, Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Number 3, Sebastian Lombard. Jacques Duplessis at 4, Charlie Eels making his debut at number 5, Cameron Hanekom at 6, Reinhard Ludwig at 7, VJ Steenkamp at 8, Zach Berger at 9, Monestein at 10, Wandisile Similane at 11, Chris Barron-Smith at 12, Lionel Mapu at 13, Sibongile Novuga at 14, and Juan Mostert at 15. The Impact Squad, Jacques van Rooyen at 16, Tian Lange at 17, Robert Hunt at 18, Merve Olivier at 19, Mihlali Mosi at 20, Bernard van der Linde at 21, Cornel Hendricks at 22, and Kabelo Mukwena at 23. Then the Vodacom Bulls side that will face Leinster is as follows. At number 1, Gerard Steenkamp. Number 2, Johan Grobler. And maybe just, is it necessary for me to go through everybody if I say the squad remains unchanged? Do you guys remember the squad from last week? Are you happy with that? Brendan, Warren, Gobus, Morgan, Ashfaq.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine, thanks.
All right, cool. Guys online, I'll ask you to hang tight for me. We'll come back to you just now. Thanks. Cool.
Jake, maybe it's like just Charlie Eels, all that sorted out. How's he been training?
Yeah. No, good, Brennan. So, I mean, he was a bit of a, to be fair, I thought everything was fine. Then he had to go back and get a work visa. Apparently, the collective agreement says you have to pay a player. I think it was put in place in case you use club guys and you don't pay them. I don't think in their wildest dreams they envisage someone coming and wanting to play for nothing. But as it stands, he needed to get a work permit based on the fact that if he gets any money, even if you pay him a match fee, he has to have a work permit. So it's all done. We had some really good help from the embassy, the British Embassy. Got some really good help from the Director General of South Africa. And, obviously organised everything in London, went back, got it in London, got back on Thursday morning. So he's looking forward to playing.
You guys obviously have some help there, as you say, from some of the authorities. Because I've heard as well, one of the reasons why that Simone Centre went back is work permit problems.
Yes.
It's quite difficult to get apparently for overseas players.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure it is. But I mean, as I said, there was a guy who obviously, helped us. As I said, he's the British Embassy, UXC as the ambassador here. Happens to be a person that we know. And then he obviously spoke to the Director General and, as you say, got back to London. And so everything's ticked. Everything is obviously everything's in place. And now he can play rugby. And you can just imagine he's been out for a while. He wants to make the England World Cup squad. And, I'm sure he's going to add a massive amount of value to us.
Just on the other side, vote of confidence. It's hard to change the side after 78 points.
Yeah, we're also getting to the stage now, Brennan, where we get into the back end of the competition. We've got to try and keep that continuity going. We've got a lot of guys that are, like Chris has just come back from injury. Marcel will join us soon. Marcel Kutsia. Nazam wasn't available this week, but he's going to be in the mix next week as well. So, hopefully everyone that we've got in our club now almost going to be available to play in these knockout games. And this is no different. It's a knockout game tomorrow because we need to win it and make sure we stay in Europe.
Do you take them in the Leinster's obviously got different ambitions. Leo's gone back, and some of the coaches have gone back. They've left a young coach here with them.
Yeah.
Do you take anything out of that? Or?
No, I take a lot out of that. I think what that shows you where clubs all want to try and get to. Imagine if you can go through a season where you're unbeaten, you can, take some of your main players back, take your director of rugby home, still feel confident that they're going to get a result. There's no ways they've put up the white flag. You saw what happened last week, So I was just saying to the media this week when they asked me, I said, that's what all clubs are trying to do. I think every club in the world is trying to get where Leinster is now. 30 odd internationals, academy system that's really, working well. It's definitely the envy of every franchise. Any club side in the world would love to be Leinster, I think.
And just, I mean, obviously we didn't get to speak to you last week, but I have to ask you about Jacques moving
Yeah.
to Leinster as well. I know it's maybe surprised a lot of people, but it
Yeah.
shows how the drawing power that Leinster have in that development.
Well, I mean, again, I can't talk on Jacques' behalf, but I will say it's an incredible club. And they obviously, if you look at the kind of coaches they've drawn there, Conteponi, and they've had, as I said, lots and lots of good coaches have gone through that club and moved on to become even better. So look what Stuart Lancaster's done post England. So yeah, it's fantastic that the club like that. And again, I repeat what I said to you earlier, Brendan. I mean, it's a club that I think everyone is trying to emulate. Yes, we have the Crusaders in the Southern Hemisphere, and obviously they also in their own right an incredible club. But if you look at the Heineken Cup, you look at the kind of players they produce, you look at the kind of internationals they produce. Leinster, I mean, in a bad year, it's sometimes as good as some teams' good years. So it's definitely something I've been pushing a long time since I got here. Spoke to my board this week as well. We need to find ways in which we can produce internationals and bring in internationals as well. And we can't bring international foreigners, but you look at a guy like Jason Jenkins who's gone there, and you look at the kind of players that they've signed over the years at Leinster that have aided their local players, and we've got to try and do that with Springboks. That's basically where our mission is now.
Just on Leinster, I mean, the game tomorrow, obviously, that you're facing technically a second string side, but in Leinster's case, it doesn't really matter often who's in the jersey. It's more the system that works.
Yeah, exactly that. That's why I said I'm sort of repeating it again. What they have is they've got something special. They've got an academy system, and they bring a guy in. I mean, look at that youngster last week, Prendergast, under 20 Flav, becomes man of the match in his first URC game. I can't think of many 10s that would have come into an URC game in any other franchise and would have been man of the match. Now, that says a lot for the confidence they give him, the confidence that they surround him with, the processes they've put in place for him to get to where he is. And so, I mean, as I said, that speaks volumes for where they are and where we want to try and get to.
One question, Coach. Were you surprised that Jacques would leave for a club side, the Springbok job? And it doesn't seem like there was any sort of acrimony between him and SA Rugby. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised like anybody when someone leaves a national job. You often wonder why. It's a great job. I mean, coaching the Springboks world champions. I mean, I can say it's one of the greatest jobs in sport. So, but as I said, I can't answer for why and how and what what the reasonings are. It's I'm sure he's thought about it and he's made a decision which is in the best interest of himself.
Somehow, when these jobs open up, your name crops up because of what you've done internationally. Have you considered it? Have you been approached?
Yeah, well, my name doesn't crop up. I've been reading enough articles to see that my name's not on that, so it's maybe a good thing. But sometimes it's spooky when your name is on that list because you generally don't get it.
Is there any window of possibility? I mean, I know you attached the post for 2027.
Yeah.
Is there sort of...
Yeah, look, I mean, the answer is very simple, guys. I mean, I'm signed here till 27. I coach a lot of players who I think should be international players and will become international players. I work for an incredible organisation. I mean, I have a great relationship with my board, with Patrice Matsepe and with Johan Rupert. I wouldn't do anything without ever speaking to them about it. If they felt it was in the best interest of South African rugby that I would be involved in the national setup, I would only do it with their blessing, And I think it'd also be true to say, guys, that you've seen that unless you get in there and they want you, that's first prize. You're being forced in. And secondly, you've got to get what you think is important for you to run the organisation when it comes to rugby. And those are things that obviously to answer your question, you always want to coach internationally. You always want to, I'm a South African, but at the same time, all those things have to be in place, and I can't answer that because I'm busy focusing on coaching a provincial team.
Yeah. Just here, your work here in the Bulls. I mean, you've just overcome probably the toughest period of your tenure.
Yes.
When you look back at the success versus the tough times, do you feel like now you kind of weathered sort of the biggest storm?
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, again, you can write, I'm saying you write stats any way you want. I've been following other teams that have basically been struggling, This is not only the worst or the sort of toughest time of my tenure, I've been coaching 41 years and I have never experienced a season like this for whatever reason. My ill health, the tough draw we had, the depth of our squad, a couple of calls that we could have maybe changed. But again, that's part of coaching. And in my 41 years, I would have taken all 41 years, including this year, if you had offered it to me when I first started coaching. So, it's not a case of now, you're out of the woods. We could possibly finish sixth this weekend, probably fifth if we play really well. It's not bad having a terrible season and finishing fifth or sixth on the log. I know some teams who play really well and don't finish fifth and sixth on the log. So, but the reality is, we just want to focus on getting through this campaign, going as high as we can, going as deep into the competition as we can, and then we'll have a review and see where we are as a group. And I've said it again many times. We've got two incumbent Springboks, of which probably won't start for the World Cup because you've got Cheslin Colby, Mapimpi, and Damian Willemse with Willie Leroux. Chances are our two outside backs probably wouldn't make their group, as in to start. And those are the only two we have. So, that's part of my brief to answer your question. The next 4 or 5 years till 27 is to produce Springboks. Make sure that the cycle of where the Sharks and the Stormers are now will be where the Bulls will be in 27. We'll have then 10, 11, 12 Springboks. And hopefully we'll be, the team that everyone wants to beat.
Yeah, that's so just a couple more. With these players like Kirkley and Kanan coming through, and I think Ron O'Keefe's on the periphery as well as Kia, again, internationally speaking, why would you want to leave when there's such potential to rebuild the Springbok team?
I don't want to leave.
If you're Jacques,
it's difficult. I can't answer for you. I can't answer why a guy would want to leave a national job when you're coaching the world champions. I can't answer that. So I think you've got to ask him.
Yeah, and just finally for me, you did it sort of the hard way last year. You had to go beat Leinster in Dublin. A result that probably rose in stature. We understand what Leinster is in this competition. You will have to do it the hard way again because of your low position. How do you then revitalize that spirit?
Yeah, look, let me say this to you. We had to do it the hard way last year. This year we have to do it the very, very, very hard way because we were basically dead 4 or 5 weeks ago anyway. And every game has been a knockout game since then. And we've now still got hope. So I suppose the lessons we learned last year on having to win those games away have helped us for where we are now. And I'm talking about get through this difficult period. Those 2 months, if you play Exeter away, Lyon away, Stormers away, Sharks away, and the list just goes on and on and on. There are not many teams that will get out of that with 6 or 7 wins, other than maybe Leinster. And that's part of the growing that we have to do as a group. We need to understand that we're going to get more and more tough seasons. We played Exeter, who made the semi-finals of Europe. They were in our pool. We met Lyon, who made the semi-finals of Challenge Cup in our pool. So, that was, as I said, next year we could get Saracens and La Rochelle. Next year we could get, Toulouse and Saracens. And again, then it doesn't get any easier than that anyway. So these learning things are all part of where the group wants to get to. And I'm saying, meeting with the board, we need to get bigger squads. We need players that are on the top 16 weekend when the top 16s played. There were probably 3 South African sides that didn't play in the South African jersey. So if you go through Dwayne and Jason Jenkins and Ergia Snyman and Jasper Visa and Wilco Low, and the list just goes on and on and on. There are probably another 45, 50 guys that played in that top 16. Imagine you put all those guys into 4 franchises. Then I think we can compete playing anybody, anywhere, because we'll have the best players in South Africa. And that's part of what my brief was to my board, is we need to find a way in bringing those players back to our 4 franchises. I heard this week, Dwayne Vermeulen gets pony money to play for Ulster. That's bizarre. Imagine paying a guy to play against us. Can it get any tougher than that? So we need to find a way in which we can get the Dwayne Vermeulens and the Jasper Visas and the Jason Jenkins, Ergia Snymans, the list just goes on and on and on and on. Get those guys back to South Africa, playing in our franchise. Maybe we've got to scrap the salary cap. maybe we got to find the money and keep the best guys here, because that's the only way we're going to be able to compete week in and week out against all these great teams.
Jack, sorry, just one bigger picture, just back to Jacques' thing, and not so much with your Bulls hat on, shall I say.
Yes.
Is the danger not there for SA Rugby that, I mean, Yuri's already left.
Yes.
Jacques leaving, there's question marks whether Russie will stay as well.
Yes.
And all that IP after a World Cup cycle might be gone. And
Now, Brendan, again, there's a hell of a thing to debate, but the IP in South African rugby's never stayed. I mean, Carl left, Markgraf left, Mac left, I left, Nick left. So, I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, it's not like now that all of a sudden the IP is going to go. I mean, basically, I can give you a list of Peter de Villiers, Heinie Kameya, Carl du Plessis, Ian McIntosh, Nick Mallet, Andre Markgraf, myself. No one's ever asked those guys for their IP, and they're still all living, other than, I mean, obviously Mac, bless his soul, but the point I'm trying to tell you is that in the living times, no one's ever worried about that IP. So I think, I don't think that's on the top of their priorities of whether the IP goes.
Okay, well, maybe just say that the other way around is that in terms of the structures and everything that's been put in place, that you might get somebody coming in and basically reinventing the wheel.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that's probably been the success of our national team for a long time. And when guys come in, they do reinvent the wheel, and sometimes that's the change we need in order to get that energy. I don't think it's necessarily the right way to do it, but in some ways it has worked. So, yeah, Brendan. I mean, there is going to be change. There was always going to be change, whatever time it was going to happen. Like one group comes in, another group goes out. I can only talk on behalf of my time there. 2004, when I took over, we were 6th in the world. And 12 years later, the same group of players were playing in their 3rd World Cup. And I think out of that squad that played in 2007, if maybe 85, 90% of them played 100 test matches. Now, before I got the job, 50 tests was almost unheard of. And if you go through it, Orsa 100, John 100, Bucky's 100, Victor 100, Juan Smith, I mean, it must be close to 100, John de Villiers 100, Monty 100, Brian 100. There's no reason why it won't happen again. So, I suppose what I'm saying is we've been in this situation before, and sometimes it's worked in our favour. But I can't talk on what's happening there and what should happen and how they. Obviously I have my own views on that, but it's not for me to say to you what I think should happen. There's definitely reasons why they've done it, and I'm sure those reasons will come out.